Capricorn, if August 20th feels strangely different, don't ignore it. That unusual feeling may be your first clue that something inside your life is shifting. On August 20th, the first quarter moon brings a powerful moment of tension, movement, and decision. And for Capricorn, this energy may reveal exactly what needs to change before your next chapter can begin. So if you've been feeling off, unsettled, or strangely alert these past few days, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why. The weird feeling you may notice on August 20th, 0 to 3, Capricorn, have you noticed it yet? That subtle shift in the air, a feeling you can't quite name, but you know it's there. Maybe you woke up more alert than usual. Maybe your mind has been circling back to the same thought over and over, refusing to let it go. Or maybe you've felt an odd mix of restlessness and clarity at the same time, like part of you is ready to move and another part of you is holding back. If any of that sounds familiar, you're not imagining it. On August 20th, the sky reaches what astrologers call a first quarter moon, a phase closely tied to tension, action, and the pressure to decide. It's the point in the lunar cycle where intentions planted weeks ago start pushing against the walls of your everyday life, demanding a response. For a sign like yours, this kind of energy doesn't always show up loudly. Capricorn rarely explodes into obvious drama. Instead, it shows up as a quiet unease, a tightness in your chest when you think about a certain person, a flicker of impatience when a plan doesn't move fast enough, a sudden burst of motivation that seems to come out of nowhere, followed by an equally sudden wave of doubt. Here's why this matters. Capricorn, you build your life around control, structure, and long-term certainty. You like to know where you're headed. You like a plan you can trust. So when an invisible current starts stirring underneath that plan, your whole system notices, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. This is where the curiosity begins, because that uncomfortable feeling isn't random. It's not a glitch in your day. It may actually be pointing directly at the one area of your life that has been quietly asking for your attention. The area you've been too busy, too disciplined, or too afraid to look at directly. So here's your first assignment for this video, and it's simple. On August 20th, notice what your mind keeps returning to, not the big obvious tasks on your to-do list, the thought that keeps sneaking back in when you're not trying to think about anything at all. That repeating thought is rarely an accident. It's often a message about what currently matters most to you, whether you're ready to admit it or not. Keep that thought in the back of your mind as we move forward, because we're going to come back to it. Why the first quarter moon feels different, 3 to 6. Let's slow down for a moment and talk about what a first quarter moon actually represents, because understanding this will help everything else in this video make sense. Think of the lunar cycle as a story. It begins at the new moon, a quiet starting point where intentions are planted like seeds beneath the surface. From there, the moon grows, and so does the energy around whatever was set into motion. By the time we reach the first quarter, roughly a week after that new moon, something important happens. The seed that was planted quietly now has to meet reality. This is the phase where ideas stop being comfortable thoughts and start requiring action. It's often described as a moment of friction, almost like the moon itself is asking, "Are you actually going to do something about this, or were those just words?" That tension you may be feeling right now isn't a warning sign. It's simply the natural pressure of growth meeting resistance. Now let's bring Capricorn into this picture, because your relationship with this kind of energy is unique. You already understand discipline. You already understand responsibility. You've built an entire identity around patience, long-term thinking, and steady achievement. In many ways, you were made for phases like this. But here's the challenge the first quarter moon presents to you specifically. It asks you to stop waiting for perfect conditions. Capricorn, you have a tendency to prepare and prepare and prepare again. convinced that just a little more planning will guarantee the outcome. The first quarter moon has little patience for that. It doesn't ask you to have everything figured out. It asks you to move with what you already know. This is often the moment where a sudden realization surfaces. The quiet suspicion that a plan, a relationship, a habit, or a long-held goal is no longer aligned with who you're becoming. It might arrive as a single sentence in your mind. This doesn't feel right anymore. Or it might be softer, more like a tiredness that has nothing to do with sleep. And here's something worth sitting with. Sometimes the strange feeling is not a warning. It is an invitation to move. That distinction matters. A warning tells you to stay still and protect yourself. An invitation tells you that it's safe, even necessary, to take the next step. The discomfort you're sensing right now may be less about danger and more about a door quietly opening. The hidden message behind your restlessness. Let's go deeper into that restlessness because it's carrying more information than you might realize. Restlessness is rarely just restlessness. It's usually a symbol, a signal that something inside your life is ready to move, even if your circumstances haven't caught up yet. For most signs, that might show up as boredom or a vague itch for change. But for Capricorn, restlessness often gets buried underneath responsibility. You don't always let yourself feel it directly. Instead, it leaks out sideways, as irritability, as exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, as a strange heaviness around tasks that used to feel manageable. Here's a question worth asking yourself honestly. Is what you're feeling right now healthy ambition, pushing you towards something new? Or is it the weight of responsibilities that stopped being yours a long time ago, but you kept carrying them out of habit? This distinction is important for Capricorn specifically, because you have a rare kind of loyalty to people, to plans, to versions of yourself you built years ago. And sometimes that loyalty turns into an invisible trap. You stay committed to a job, a relationship, or a routine, not because it still fits, but because you already invested so much time, effort, and identity into it. Walking away can feel like admitting that effort was wasted, even when staying is what's actually costing you. So here's a harder question, and I want you to actually sit with this one instead of rushing past it. What are you continuing only because you're afraid to start over? Not what are you continuing because you love it, not what are you continuing because it's genuinely working. What are you continuing purely out of fear? Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of disappointing people who expected you to stay the same forever? August 20th may bring a moment of unusual clarity around one specific area where you've been forcing stability that isn't actually there anymore. It could be career-related, it could be personal, it could be something you haven't said out loud to anyone, maybe not even to yourself. Whatever it is, don't push it away just because it's uncomfortable. Discomfort, in this case, isn't your enemy. It's often the first sign of an internal breakthrough, the kind that doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but with a quiet, undeniable knowing. And that breakthrough is exactly where we're headed next. A decision may be asking for your attention. 9 to 12. If there's one thing the first quarter moon is known for in astrology, it's this: bringing postponed decisions back to the surface. You know the ones. The choices you've been quietly avoiding, hoping time would somehow resolve them on its own. Maybe it's something about your career, a path you keep circling instead of committing to. Maybe it's financial, a decision about spending, saving, or investing that you've delayed because it feels too big to face. Maybe it's relational, a boundary you know you need to set but haven't found the right moment for. Or maybe it's about your future in a broader sense, a life direction you've outgrown but haven't officially let go of. I'm not here to tell you exactly which one it is, because astrology isn't about predicting one precise event down to the letter. What matters far more is recognizing the pattern. Ask yourself, where in your life do I currently feel stuck between two choices? Not confused about what's right and wrong. Capricorn, you usually know that instinctively. Stuck because choosing means change, and change means uncertainty. Around this date, pay close attention to small signals. A conversation that lingers in your mind longer than expected. A message from someone you weren't thinking about. An idea that appears out of nowhere and refuses to leave. A sudden realization that makes you rethink something you decided months ago. These moments often arrive quietly, almost easy to dismiss, but they tend to carry more weight than they first appear to. And here's the retention point I want you to remember for the rest of this video. The decision you make after recognizing the truth may matter more than the uncomfortable feeling itself. The feeling is just the messenger. It's uncomfortable because it's trying to get your attention, not because something is inherently wrong with you. What you choose to do once you've received that message, that's where your power actually lives. So as we move into the next section, keep this in mind. We're about to look at two major areas of life where this decision energy tends to concentrate for Capricorn: career and relationships. And I think you'll start to see exactly where your own answer has been hiding. The career and money energy. Let's talk about work, ambition and money. Territory that Capricorn understands better than almost any other sign in the zodiac. Around the first quarter moon, there's often a symbolic invitation to review your professional priorities. Not to panic, not to make dramatic decisions overnight, but to genuinely ask yourself whether the direction you're working toward still reflects the person you are right now. Here's something worth confronting honestly. Working harder is not always the same as moving forward. Capricorn, you have an incredible capacity for effort. You can push through exhaustion, push through doubt, push through circumstances that would stop most people cold. But effort without direction can quietly become its own trap. Years spent climbing a ladder that may be leaning against the wrong wall. So take a moment and ask yourself, do my current goals still match the future I actually want? Not the future you thought you wanted 5 years ago, not the future someone else expects of you, the one that feels true to you now. This period may bring delayed opportunities finally starting to move, new responsibilities landing on your plate, or shifting priorities that force you to reconsider what success even means to you at this stage of your life. None of this requires panic. It requires strategy, something you're naturally skilled at, even when your emotions are loud. Patience matters here, but there's an important distinction to make. Patience is not the same as passive waiting. Patience means staying steady while still taking deliberate steps. Passive waiting means hoping things resolve themselves while you stay frozen in place. The energy of this period rewards the first and quietly drains the second. Here's the empowering truth I want you to carry with you. Capricorn does not need to chase every opportunity. Capricorn needs to recognize which opportunity deserves commitment. You don't have to say yes to everything that crosses your path. You have to say yes to the right things. And trust yourself enough to say no to the rest without guilt. That kind of discernment is where your real power lives right now, not in doing more, in choosing better. Relationships may feel different. Now let's shift into something a little more personal. The way this energy touches your relationships. Around the first quarter moon, many people experience a quiet sharpening of emotional awareness, and Capricorn is no exception. You may find yourself noticing things you usually push past. Who genuinely brings you peace, and who consistently leaves you feeling emotionally exhausted, even if you can't always explain why. This is a good moment to observe actions rather than promises. Words are easy. Anyone can say the right thing in the right moment, but actions reveal patterns over time. Who shows up consistently, who follows through, who respects your time and energy without needing to be asked twice. Capricorn, you already value reliability deeply. Let that value guide how you interpret the people around you right now. This is also a moment to think honestly about boundaries. There's a difference between loyalty and self-abandonment, and it's a line you may have crossed more often than you'd like to admit. Loyalty means showing up for people you care about. Self-abandonment means shrinking yourself, silencing your needs, or tolerating treatment you'd never accept from anyone else, all in the name of staying loyal. Some relationships may grow deeper during this period, especially if you allow yourself to communicate honestly instead of holding everything in the way you're used to doing. Vulnerability isn't weakness for you, Capricorn. It's actually one of the bravest things you can offer someone. Other relationships, meanwhile, may naturally require a bit of distance, not necessarily an ending. Sometimes just space to see things more clearly. I want to be careful here, because I'm not telling you this means a guaranteed breakup or a guaranteed reunion. Astrology at its best isn't about certainty. It's about awareness. What this period offers you is the chance to see your relationships more honestly than you have in a while. What you do with that awareness is entirely up to you. The intuition signal. You should not ignore. Let's talk about something Capricorn doesn't always trust easily. Intuition. Intuition isn't magic. It's an internal sense, a kind of quiet knowing that tends to grow stronger the moment you slow down enough to actually listen to it. Most of the time, it gets drowned out by schedules, obligations, and the constant pressure to be productive. But around a lunar phase like this one, when the noise of everyday life briefly quiets, that inner voice tends to get a little louder. Pay attention to repeated thoughts. Notice emotional reactions that feel bigger than the situation seems to call for. Take note of dreams that stick with you longer than usual, or moments of sudden clarity that arrive out of nowhere, almost like a light switching on. I'm not presenting these as guaranteed supernatural predictions. I'm simply asking you to notice them, because they often carry information your logical mind hasn't fully processed yet. Here's the thing about Capricorn specifically. Your practical nature is one of your greatest strengths, but it can also work against you in this area. You tend to dismiss feelings until the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. You want proof before you trust something. You want facts before you act. That instinct has protected you many times, but it can also delay you from acknowledging what some part of you already knows. The goal here isn't to abandon logic and chase every feeling blindly. The goal is balance. Letting intuition point you toward what deserves closer attention, and letting your practical mind help you evaluate it clearly once it does. So here's something to sit with. Is there one recurring thought that keeps returning to you lately? One that you've been brushing aside because it seems inconvenient, or because acting on it would require change? That thought may be revealing the real issue behind the strange feeling we talked about at the very beginning of this video. We're getting closer to it now. And in the next section, we're going to talk about what that thought might actually be asking you to release, what Capricorn is being asked to release. This is one of the most important sections of this video, so I want you to really absorb it. Capricorn, you carry a lot. Outdated expectations you placed on yourself years ago and never revisited. Perfectionism that convinces you nothing is good enough until it's flawless. Excessive control that tries to manage every variable, even the ones that were never yours to manage. A quiet fear of failure that pushes you to overwork just to avoid the discomfort of falling short. And an emotional pressure you rarely let anyone see because you've spent so long being the reliable one. Here's something that might shift how you think about all of this. Releasing something does not always mean losing it. Sometimes it simply means releasing the way you've been trying to control the outcome. Read that again, because it matters. You can still want the goal, the relationship, the future you've been working toward, without white-knuckling every step of the process. Release in this context isn't about giving up. It's about loosening your grip enough to let things unfold a little more naturally. I also want to gently challenge something many Capricorns struggle with: measuring your worth only through productivity or achievement. Your value isn't determined by how much you accomplish in a day, how impressive your resume looks, or how in control you appear to everyone around you. Those things reflect your effort. They don't define your worth. This period may be inviting you into something unfamiliar. Trusting gradual progress instead of demanding immediate proof. That's a real challenge for a sign built on tangible results. But growth doesn't always show up as a visible milestone. Sometimes it looks like quiet internal change that only becomes obvious much later, once you look back and realize how far you've actually come. Here's the emotional turning point I want to leave you with in this section. The thing that feels uncertain today may be the space where something better can eventually grow. Uncertainty isn't empty, it's unformed. And unformed spaces are exactly where new things get built. Your August 20th Capricorn reset. Let's bring everything together into something practical you can actually use on August 20th itself. Here's a simple reflection practice. Find a quiet moment during the day. It doesn't need to be long, just uninterrupted. And answer 3 honest questions. First, what is one thing I want to continue? Something in your life that's genuinely working, that deserves your continued effort and commitment. Second, what is one thing I want to change? Not something small and surface level, but something that's been quietly asking for your attention. Maybe the very thing we've been circling throughout this video. Third, what is one thing I need to stop carrying? A responsibility, an expectation, a belief about yourself that no longer serves who you're becoming. As you sit with these answers, resist the urge to act purely from temporary emotion. Strong feelings are valid, and they deserve to be acknowledged, but decisions made in the heat of an emotional wave don't always hold up once that wave settles. Let the feeling inform you, don't let it rush you. Instead, use this day intentionally. Journal if that helps you process. Sit in quiet reflection if you need space to think without distraction. Make a plan if clarity has already started to form. Have an honest conversation if there's someone you've been avoiding. Take one small, intentional action if you're ready to move. And remember this, Capricorn. The first quarter moon symbolizes movement, not perfection. You don't need to have the entire plan figured out today. You just need to take one honest step in a direction that feels true. That strange feeling that started all of this, it becomes useful the moment it leads you toward greater self-awareness. That's really all it was ever trying to do. The bigger message for Capricorn, 27 minutes to 29 minutes. Let's bring every piece of this video together. We talked about movement, the quiet pressure to stop waiting for perfect conditions. We talked about decisions that have been patiently waiting for your attention. We talked about boundaries and the difference between loyalty and self-abandonment. We talked about career direction and choosing commitment over chasing everything at once. We talked about emotional clarity in your relationships, intuition you've been taught to second-guess, and the quiet release of control that's been weighing you down longer than you probably realized. I want to be clear about something before we close. August 20th isn't a guaranteed prediction of one specific event happening to you. Think of it more as a symbolic checkpoint, a moment where the sky lines up in a way that makes reflection easier, clarity sharper, and old patterns harder to keep ignoring. Your power, Capricorn, has never come from controlling every outcome. It comes from responding consciously instead of reacting impulsively. From pausing long enough to ask what a feeling is trying to tell you, instead of pushing it down and moving on like you've done so many times before. You don't need to see the entire path to trust the next step. You never have. Every major achievement in your life so far came from moving forward one deliberate step at a time, even when the destination wasn't fully clear. This moment is no different, and I want to leave you with this thought because I think it captures exactly what this period is offering you. Sometimes the universe does not change your direction by giving you an answer. Sometimes it changes your direction by making the old path feel impossible to ignore. Capricorn, if something has felt different lately, take a moment and ask yourself what your life is trying to show you, not what you are trying to force it to become. If this message connected with you, comment, "I am ready for my next chapter," below. I want to know how many Capricorns are feeling this shift. And if you want more Capricorn astrology, moon energy readings, and powerful spiritual guidance, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this video with another Capricorn who has been feeling that something is changing. Remember, you do not need to see the entire road to take the next right step. Your next chapter may already be beginning.